Hello, my name is Denis Fedorov, and in this video I'm going to tell how many Russian words you actually need to learn. I will give some precise figures, tell what are these words exactly that you need to learn, and explain some other things concerning a vocabulary. Let's start. Well, an average Russian native speaker uses in speech and writing about 7,500 words. It may seem to be a pretty big figure, yes, but do you need to know such a lot of words, or probably a less amount will be enough? Let's figure this out. Okay, of course your Russian vocabulary should correspond to your level and your goals in the Russian language. Here are these vocabulary milestones. These are vocabulary stages. Let's go through them and try to find how many Russian words you need to know. So let's start with a beginner's vocabulary, which is about 400 words. So, the first milestone is 400 words. This is an average recommended number of words you need to know to move from this beginner stuff, like teaching yourself to read, learning basic words and phrases in order to be able to say something, to teaching yourself to speak Russian by starting to learn the beginner's Russian grammar. Of course, here I mean those people who want to learn the Russian language, but not those of you who are just learning some essential Russian words because of going to visit Russia soon. You may just learn the words. Okay, so the thing is that at this beginner's level, you are learning new Russian words not to actually start speaking right away and not to understand Russian texts and speech of Russian-speaking people. In the short run, you are doing it to do a very basic, simple communication, like to say hello, thank you, I'm sorry, or please, and to express yourself in very simple situations. But in the long run, it's the bigger picture. Learning these words, these first words in order to get prepared to be teaching yourself to speak Russian. Words learning is, like an auxiliary thing here in the very beginning. When you start to learn Russian, you need to learn the Russian alphabet. To set up basic pronunciation, which means to properly pronounce all sounds of letters plus soft sounds. Develop the ability to connect those sounds into syllables and words, and to achieve some speed, some sort of basic fluency in reading. The thing about the Russian grammar is that we carefully choose a small but practical vocabulary and teach you to speak with this small number of words. Then we expand this ability by adding new words and by learning how to speak using these new words. Then in the future, through practice, you continue learning new words, but already not teaching yourself how to speak using those new words, because you can do it naturally. So let's return to our 400 words milestone. So on real practice, this vocabulary serves to a thing that you're not learning to speak, but preparing yourself for learning to speak. I see it, the main obstacle between you and the Russian grammar is not only about this amount of words, actually it is a pretty figurative number, but the fluency, the speed of reading. The thing is that you mostly learn and understand grammar through examples and exercises. And when one has a problem first to read a word, an example, and then must look for a translation, the process of learning the grammar becomes quite a hard thing. Almost impossible. That's why many people, when starting to learn beginner's Russian grammar, find it embarrassingly hard, because simply they are not ready for it. The thing is that from my practice, probably you can start learning grammar even with 200 carefully chosen words. But on practice, the main problem here is this speed of reading. So personally I advise to learn 400 words. So during this process, you could improve the speed of and easiness of reading in order to avoid those beginner's problems in learning grammar. On practice, when you meet a person who've learned 200 words, one is very often slow, not confident, makes too many mistakes. But when learned 400 words, the same student is already much better. So 400 words is usually this basic dictionary to start learning grammar. Now about what these 400 words should be exactly. The thing is that before completing learning beginner's Russian grammar, we needed to learn only carefully chosen words. In Russian, starting to speak means to develop the ability to transform words. So our grammar is not only about how to summarize, connect words into a sentence, but also how to transform words themselves inside this sentence. Our words are transformable, flexible. So to transform these words, we need to learn some common simple words and to learn to work with them. So on this level, we learn some very simple, accurate words that have exactly the same meaning in your native language and in Russian. No ambiguity is allowed here. On my channel, I have some lists with such words. However, once you upload a video, you are not able to change things in it. So I will be not giving any specific recommendations in this video, but in the description I will provide some links to such words. But I want you to understand that there are no such 100% correct lists with these first words to learn. There are different systems, different authors with their own views, so these lists are pretty approximate. But the words must be simple, have the same meaning in both languages, widely used in both languages. You should start with some consolidated list of common words of all parts of speech, about probably 200 words, and then proceed with common words divided by parts of speech starting from nouns, like most common nouns, then common verbs, adjectives, but you start with nouns because they form the basis of the vocabulary, but also because Russian grammar starts with nouns. In the description I will give you links to my lists for this level. The next milestone is 800 words, and it's already about the ability to speak. 800 is the amount of words needed for very basic, simple conversations, some basic understanding and expressing yourself in very common situations. So 800 words would be enough for elementary communication. So we call 800 words an elementary vocabulary. And actually on the official level, to get an official elementary level certificate, you need to know 800 words. You should achieve this vocabulary during learning the beginner's Russian grammar. And such words should include the most common words by parts of speech, probably in the following proportion: 60% of nouns and 48% of all other parts of speech altogether. Plus, your vocabulary should now include some basic phrases and expressions. So your vocabulary should be oriented on two things: Russian grammar learning thing and communication thing. So the communication thing means phrases like how to say hello, introduce yourself for another person, say sorry, say thank you, say you're welcome, say repeat please, also to say yes, no, say time, place, say whether you like it or not, and things like that. Very basic communication. And general vocabulary should be driven by the words that you pick from the beginner's grammar learning from textbooks. Okay, let's go forward. The next milestone is 1,300 words. At this level, you can communicate in most everyday situations. It's like the previous level, but more profound and broad. And at this level, in addition to increasing your vocabulary in general by learning lists with words, again, you should not forget about practical phrases. In addition to some simple communication, you should now be able to also congratulate, express wishes, ask, say what you want, express concerns, ask for permission. So before you were like a robot in speech, now you can express some emotions, intentions, and wishes to tell things like about yourself, what you do, and to hold some common conversations. So if the 800 words level was, like for survival, now it's also about relatively good communication in some certain situations and areas. So this level is mostly about communication, and here is the thing. There are texts and there is a speech. The difference between them is that speech is always simpler. 1,000 most common words do usually cover 85% of a common speech, but not a very significant part of the common texts. So on practice, on this level, when you go out and speak to Russians, you will be able to do that relatively okay. But you will be still having problems in reading real life stuff, like, for example, news or some articles. However, this level has one peculiarity. Things are starting to get practical here. So now the main criteria for words learning are two: a frequency index and professional words. There are a lot of people out there and everybody is doing something. And there are people whose profession is to do some vocabulary research. There is such a frequency index. They do scan web pages covering a wide range of texts, fiction and articles, news, discussions, FAQs, legal documents. They observe the internet, tens, thousands of web pages, of course not manually, and via some very complex analysis, thanks to the work of those people, we know exactly which word Russian native speakers use the most, which word is number 99, and in the frequency of usage, which is 2,993, and so on. Of course, there is some discrepancy, but these lists are pretty precise. So, actually, you can get such a list of words on the internet and start learning them. At first, almost all words will be known to you because they are very common, and when moving further away, more and more words will be new for you, which you need to learn. So by having such a list and learning new words with it, you will be knowing the size of your vocabulary, and you may rest assured that you are learning the commonest words of the Russian language. So again, there is a clear data on which words are used the most by native speakers, and each word has its position in this rating. So the mostly used Russian word is "e", which means "and". It's number one. The second is the word "v", which means "in" or "into". The third is "не", which means "not", and so on. So the most common words are functional words, mostly prepositions and conjunctions. Then come other parts of speech. For instance, the word number 594 is 10, which means 10. The word number 2135 is sumka, which means a bag, and so on and so forth. So we have this data, and actually you too, because there are frequency dictionaries out there which you can buy or find on the internet. The problem with this frequency index is that it is not personalized. It does not solve your particular problems and situations. So you also need to have another direction in learning new words, your personal direction. And usually these words are called professional. So if you are learning Russian to be an engineer in Russia, you need to learn words for engineering. If you want to be a chef in some Moscow restaurant, a cooking vocabulary, and so on. So ask yourself, why do I learn Russian? And you will know what professional words to learn. They must not be exactly professional. I mean, for your job, those can be also some personal words. The thing is that those must be words that fit personally you. The next milestone, 2,300 words. This amount of words in your vocabulary we call a basic or a core vocabulary. It is enough to speak to people on a pretty wide variety of topics without eloquence, of course. This is the milestone when magic is starting to happen. 2,300 words is the main milestone, probably. It means that you will recognize more than 80% of words, even in hard texts, which means that you will understand almost everything. Probably you will miss some details, but when reading the text, you will be able to understand its plot. When watching movies with subtitles, of course, you'll understand what people say. Actually, here the understanding will be even deeper because you see what's happening on the screen, see emotions, so it simplifies the process. So you understand almost everything. If before to read some article on the internet you had to look for translation, now you can read without a dictionary at all. Yes, you will miss some details, but you will understand it. Of course, there will be unknown words for you in the text, but you will understand up to 95% of some average text, which means if you do not know some word, you usually understand the meaning by looking at other parts of the sentence and at the mood of the text. So on this level, your task is to learn 2,300 of most frequent Russian words and of professional words. And by the way, knowing 2,300 words lets you to enroll into Russian universities to study. I mean, the number of words is not the only criterion here, of course. But there is this. But there it is clearly said that the basic vocabulary of such student who wants to learn in a Russian university should be 2,300 words. So with such vocabulary, you will be able to get this first level or B1 or TRKI1 certificate to study in a Russian university. So you see that 2,300 words is a pretty good level. The next milestone, 5,000 words. 5,000 words is the vocabulary that most people never reach and are pretty fine with that. You know, it's like when you are already pretty good at something, sometimes there comes a moment to stop spending your efforts and time on improvement in this field and just to start enjoying the results. If this thing is not of top importance to you, like you cannot be a master in everything and you need to choose. So these 5,000 words should be probably your final goal until you are going to be a teacher of Russian or something like that. This 5,000 word vocabulary will be enough for almost everything. It lets you to recognize 95% of words in the text, which means that your understanding will be close to 100% in some average texts like blogs or news. You will lack words only for some great Russian literature and for specialized texts, which probably even average native speakers will have problems with. Another peculiarity of this level is that along with learning new words, you will be forgetting the ones you know. Actually, they can move to your passive vocabulary or just vanish. But here, the problem of retention becomes pretty big. Our brain is very practical. It likes to forget stuff that it doesn't need. So, to overcome this level of 5,000 words or to reach a milestone of 5,000 words, you need the Russian language to be a part of your life. As for what these 5,000 words should be, when moving to your goal to learn 5,000 most frequent words, these, as before, should be not only most frequent words, but professional words. Again, we call them professional, but this category is something bigger. Words from your profession, why you learn Russian words, words for your interests and situations you are going to appear in. So professional words are those personalized words that you need. Your brother, neighbor, friend may not need them, but you do. The last milestone is the native speaker's level with 7,000 words in the active vocabulary and about 12,000 words in the passive. To achieve this level, you not only learn yourself new words, but also need to practice Russian like a native speaker, all day long or close to that. Even native speakers have a passive and an active vocabulary. Even native speakers cannot retain the whole vocabulary of the language, and you should not too. The key about a big vocabulary is that you should use it, and a key to a vocabulary this big is that you should use Russian language a lot. This level of vocabulary implies a native speaker language proficiency, which comes through a massive daily usage of the language. Because language is a skill and practice makes perfect. So this level of vocabulary is not only about learning new words, but also about using the words you know. A native speaker level. So, these were the levels of the Russian vocabulary. I hope this information was helpful. Decide which of these levels fits your goals and ambitions and get to it. Thank you for your time and bye.